Are you struggling with Vivi at your local game store?
Join us as we show you how to beat it.
This week on battlechads.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Battlechads podcast. My name is Dan and I am joined by one of my co-hosts, Sam. Sam, how are we?
I'm good, Dan. How are you?
I'm doing amazing, mate. All about to see your face. We don't have Josh with us this week. Last week we had Josh recording a separate video that neither of us two could make, and we had an amazing guest on talking about Goryo's Vengeance in Modern. So if you've not seen that, well, go check that out. But here we are discussing a different format completely. We're discussing Standard.
Yep. A format many are saying is dead or solved or been left to rot. So it's a bit of an odd time to talk about Standard, isn't it, Dan? Because realistically, people aren't very interested in Standard at the moment, and that's for the I want to say elephant, but I think they're a wizard. The wizard in the room, Vivi.
The big red hat in the room.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, being a northerner in the UK at the minute, an RCQ grinder in the north is quite rough because our RCQs are few and far in between. There's been a few recently that have been announced, but a lot of people just don't want to play the standard format just because of how much of a sort of one deck format it seems to be. But today, me and Sam are going to talk to you about the many basic mountain variations on how you can beat Vivi. Before we do that, on the day that we're recording this is the 10th of September. So yesterday, Wizards posted an article discussing the state of the standard format, with the possibility of like an emergency ban for either Vivi or Soul Cauldron. We will link the article in the description, so feel free to read that if you've not read it already. But basically, the too long didn't read is Vivi is a problem, but there's no bans as of yet. They've moved the ban window from the original date, which was the 24th, to the 24th of November to the 10th of November. So it's 2 weeks earlier. And yeah, Vivi's probably going to get banned, is what they've pretty much said in the article, or from what we've encapsulated by it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, like, Wizards always speak in some form of riddle. Yeah, they are in fact the quantum riddler of this Earth. But no, they never say anything for certain, but they are pretty good at saying, "Hey, we can't say this, but here's what we're saying. Read in between the lines, please." And to be fair to the Wizards of the Coast, they've said they've recognised Vivi's a problem, which I'm very surprised by, to be honest. I thought it'd definitely be Soul Cauldron for sure.
Likewise.
I don't think they'd, but I imagine there's a lot of pressure on Wizards at the moment. I am a bit of a Wizards defender. I don't want to be working at Wizards of the Coast right now. You know what I mean? it must be a tough job.
Yeah.
But no, they said that Vivi's the problem, which is sure I can see how you reach that conclusion. But what do you think about we're not actually going to ban it, but here's when we are likely going to ban it, but we're not banning it for sure. And also they've admitted that they got their ban windows wrong.
Yeah.
And have basically let things go on for too long. I mean, you've just said there that we're struggling for RCQs, right? And it's interesting because this is a confirmation that the problem's going to get resolved, but is the nail already in the coffin for this RCQ season?
Yeah, exactly. Just going back to what you said, obviously the ban windows have been very, very stretched out. So another thing that I've mentioned in the article is that they're going to be shortening it, and it's one per major set release, I believe that was said in the article. Whereas originally the ban philosophy was that they would have a BNR after the RCQ season of whatever the respective RCQ season is. So that's where November 24th originally lined up. Obviously now, you know, they've admitted that there's a problem, but I can sort of respect them for sticking with what they've said in the past, where they're not just going to do emergency bans, is that they're going to stick to these schedule BNRs unless there's a clear and obvious tier 0 card in the format. So there's been arguments in the past with modern, sort of like with Nadu, One Ring, so on and so forth. But now we're getting to that point in standard where it does need a ban to help fix the format. In my personal opinion, we didn't need 50. Well, what was it, like 7, 8 different bans in the last BNR window? It was just maybe like 1 or 2 cards. But this is obviously everyone's now saying, okay, I've got up until 10th of November to play my really expensive Vivi deck. But it's, I don't know, it's weird. Because you can still play it up until then, but you know that it's got a target on its head.
Yeah, it is very, very strange because there's no consistency, essentially. I think that fundamentally, I'm not sure if emergency bans solve any problems. I don't know. But what I do know is letting formats rot is probably never the direction to go.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I played TNM yesterday, or Tuesday Night Magic, and I played against VV 3 times in 4 rounds. You know, and it's just, I don't even think that the deck is too strong, in the sense, obviously it is too strong, but it's even the way it plays is just miserable.
Yeah.
Absolutely miserable to slog through. And you know, the deck is obscenely strong, but like at the same time, is emergency banning it the solution? I don't know. But there's this weird. The thing is in standards, because VV Cauldron is doing so many silly things at the moment, there are actually quite a good number of cards that are getting away with it.
Yeah.
Screaming Nemesis is one of them, Kaito, Enduring Curiosity, Into the Floodmaw, all of these really powerful cards sort of just lurking under the water. And I think that, you know, you made a great point. Did we really need to ban 7 cards? Well, I don't know, but if you put a pressure on yourself that you can do it once a year or once every however often, then yeah, there is pressure for you to ban these cards. And then now my worry is that they feel that this VV card is a pressure on the format, which it is.
Mm-hmm.
But if now they're going, okay, well, we're going to review it now and then review it in a couple months' time, are we going to see another mass banning? It's sort of a preventative measure to have a good format rather than a reactive measure to a bad format, isn't it?
Yeah. Exactly.
So, because I'm personally a little worried that they're going to recognize VV as a problem, ban VV or ban Culture, whichever of the two, that deck's gone.
Yeah.
Okay. What else are they going to take with it as another preventative measure? Because at this point, it's embarrassing how poor Standard's been for. I've not enjoyed a Standard season in a long time. What about you, Dan?
So for me, like this is quite an emotional question because, you know, Standard, that's how everyone gets introduced to the competitive scene. Obviously, you've got Kitchen Table to get introduced to the game, but then you're like, oh, I'll come down to F&M, play some Standard. So for me, I would say that the last time I had fun in Standard, 2018 maybe, was at like GP Manchester. I was playing 4-color Cryptolith right combo, losing or winning in, but I was still having fun because the format was relatively okay. And then, you know, a load of Siege Rhino decks came back into it. A lot of 4-color mid-range piles, which was just a mess. So at that point, I wasn't having so much fun because it wasn't a good time to play Mono Red either. But now it's, when you're not playing against a VV deck, the format can be fun. So like you said, you go to your local, you play against VV 3 times. I'm the exact opposite of that. So I go to my local and no one wants to sort of splash the cash on, you know, all the Soul Cauldrons and the VVs and putting loads of money into a card or a format rather that they're not exactly flavored to. Like they prefer Modern, they prefer Pioneer, so on and so forth. But to me, is like you said, is whether they ban Vivi and then whether they do a similar approach to the last BNR where they ban other cards as a preventative measure, then that sort of puts a bit of a, it would be sort of like a bad thing. I would say anyway that it would be a bad thing to do because then there's sort of like there's no card that's safe. Like Hopeless Nightmare didn't deserve a ban because Is It Prowess was doing really well. So because Vivi's doing really well, are you then going to ban say like Screaming Nemesis from Mono Red, because that's going to be the next best deck in the format. And then after then, Kaito's going to get banned because that's going to be the next best deck in the format. And then eventually, everyone's just going to be showing up with literal grizzly bears, and then that would seem quite pushed. So it's a bit worrying to see how far it's going to go, especially because every major set release is going to be the new B&R window. So from like we've had 3 major set releases this year so far, with another one coming up.
Yeah, I think somebody said to me before that Dragonstorm was 3 sets ago.
Yeah, that's
which is crazy if you think about it. There's a chance that's not true because I haven't actually fact checked that, but it feels right.
I think it's because you had Dragonstorm, then you had Final Fantasy, then you had Edge, and now you've got Spider-Man coming out.
Yeah, 3 sets ago, almost. Yeah, I mean, like that's crazy, and like I think that I'm just worried. I will give Wizards of the Coast credit where it's due. They don't have an easy job.
No, yeah.
But this article is like, I think I'm not sure if you are a Pauper fan. I know that Josh speaks about other Pauper podcasts and that, but they have a committee, and I'm not saying that Standard needs a committee, so I'm not saying that at all. But I was just scrolling Twitter the other day, and I know that High Tide recently got unbanned in Pauper, but people have been like, okay, this is too good. But it's not much of a discussion because Pauper has a pretty strong card list. It's a bit like neutered Modern or pre-Modern Horizons Modern almost with some of the decks that exist. But I just saw somebody from the Pauper panel go, okay, guys, just to let you all know, here's a little article we've written on it. We are aware that it's probably a problem, but we haven't made up our minds yet. We will decide soon. Yeah. And like, that transparency is incredibly refreshing, and like I'm not trying to say that I could do a good job, but it's the fact that I'm not the one who has to do a good job. I can sit here and complain, but it's the people who really should be doing a good job and should be better by this than now just aren't. And like that Standard article was, we have moved the ban list, it's probably going to be this, we don't want to touch the format as is. And it's like, we've got Spotlight Liverpool on the cards, and the attendance is going to be pretty grim. But my personal thing is that, well, actually, the idea of playing a GP on my doorstep is really fun, so I'm going to go play in this thing. But if they go, okay, well, that only had 600 people like Orlando, we're not going to do one there again. There is a very large cascade effect here for like stuff like this, and I don't know. I do have trust in Wizards because I have to, and I really hope that they make some sensible decisions. But if I come back around to November and it's okay, here's another 4 cards, it's preventative bans again. It's going to be pretty frustrating. But there is something else I mentioned in that article, isn't there, about the best deck in the format, Dan?
They mentioned Mono Red.
Mono Red.
Which again goes back to my point with, if they ban Vivi, are just going to pre-ban Screaming Nemesis as well to prevent that from being the best deck. So I think actually that's a perfect segue over to sort of the next topic of the podcast, right? We're getting good at this podcast, Malaki, aren't we, Sam?
Yeah, who needs Josh anyway? Sorry, Josh, love you.
Mentally, I need Josh.
Yeah, mentally, I need Josh too. I miss him. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
So, we've got a few decks to talk about. They are all basic mountain related. My favourite archetype, took some time away from it. Started divvying up some combo decks, some mid-range decks. But I've missed it, man. I've missed playing creatures, turn them all sideways. Blocking is for cowards. So the first of the 4 decks that we're going to talk about today is just sort of like we're going to go in chronological order from when the last B&R happened. So originally it was Mono Red, and it was playing like Heartfire Heroes, Monstrous Rages, Manifold Mouse, Ember Heart Challenges. The Mono Red that we all know and maybe love. Some of you maybe hate. But this list has sort of evolved from that. So you're not playing as many mice now. You're playing a different 2-drop instead. You're playing Razorkin Needlehead, which is coincidentally really, really good against Vivi. So this,
Sorry, Dan, just stop you there. Just before we get too deep into this.
Yep.
I appreciate that Magic content at the minute is all, oh my god, this deck beats Vivi. Exclamation marks and the thumbnail of Vivi getting melted into a cauldron or something. But Dan, as listeners know, Dan is very much the mono red king around our parts.
The guy.
Yeah. And I actually decided to listen to Dan for once. And I've got to say, the man has been absolutely spot on.
I've been cooking.
You have been cooking, and I've been cooking my opponent since I've joined on the mono red train. But I have to say that to anyone listening, if you think that this is some form of clickbait, these mono red piles we're about to discuss are very, very well geared to beat the VV Menace.
Yeah.
And I think are going to be a great choice for this RCQ season.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going back to Razorkin Needlehead. Maybe asking what is that? So it's a 2-mana 2/2, and it has first strike during your turn, so it's really, really good when it's attacking. Not so much blocking, but it's fine. It's got a second ability. Whenever an opponent draws a card, Razorkin Needlehead deals 1 damage to them. So as we were saying, it's really, really plays well into the Vivi matchup, because they're drawing a lot of cards from Winter Night Stories, from the Fear of Missing Outs, from Proft. So this sort of pressures them to find the removal, to deal with Razorkin Needlehead before they can go off to buy you a few turns. I'm not going to discuss the cards that are like stereotypically inside of mono red, so like Hired Claw, Emberheart Challenger, Screaming Nemesis, because they're just like auto includes. It's just more so
they're
the new cards.
They're known quantities, aren't they?
Yeah. So this card, Razorkin Needlehead, has impressed me a lot. Obviously on the offensive foot, it's been really, really good. Like I said, it attacks really well. It very rarely dies in combat, and sometimes in the Vivi matchups more specifically, it can just eat a removal spell that would otherwise go towards a Screaming Nemesis or another Hellkite or anything like that.
It's forced to, right? Because as you just said, that most of their deck is card draw.
Yeah, exactly.
And because of the VV mirror, where removal isn't very good, they've actually gotten very greedy on interaction pieces, mainly of which is into the Floodmore, I think. The Bouncer into Floodmore. So they're leaning quite heavily on into the Floodmore.
Yeah.
And they're playing a couple of copies. So cards like Razorkin turn into deal 5 damage to find an answer. It's almost like a build your own Bitter Triumph almost. They have to find the answer to draw cards and take damage, or it's just answered straight away. So it operates as a spell skite. It's been a really impressive card. Dan, why can't I splash this in my Golgari deck?
Because it's red.
All right, okay.
You cannot splash it.
No, the card's been very impressive, right?
Yeah, it's been great. And it's not even just like coincident. It's obviously really, really good into Vivi, but it's coincidentally good into a lot of the other decks of the format. So Domain Midrange, it draws a lot of cards through Enduring Curiosity. Mono white tokens, which doesn't see as much play anymore. It's really, really good into them with their Caretaker's talents. There's lots and lots of decks in the format at the minute that just randomly draws cards, and it's going to deal 2 to maybe 3 damage a turn. One of the main key points, which Sam's a big fan of, is Razorkin Needlehead deals the damage in their turn. Now, if you have a Hired Claw, got 2 untapped mana, you can then just pump your Hired Claw at the end of their turn because they've took the damage that turn for the Hired Claw. So I really like it. The deck's very like coincidentally synergistic, whereas it's not
micro synergies.
Exactly. It doesn't necessarily mean to be.
Can I just before we move on, Dan? My favorite aspect of Razorkin Needlehead is it doesn't die to shoot the sheriff.
Yes. Also,
it's an assassin. It's an outlaw. Very cool. So when you are playing it against Enduring Curiosity, that is not wearing a sheriff's hat.
And it's the sort of the same. Higher Claw also doesn't die to shoot the sheriff.
Oh my god, really? Hang on, I've got one on my desk. I've not had that one yet. Oh, it's a mercenary. Nice.
So good. The next card on this sort of new list, obviously everyone's favourite 1-drop in Heartfire Hero was banned. We've been given sort of a bit of a sleeper card, I'd say, because it's been in the format for a little bit. This is Burnout Bastionaut from the Aether Drift set. This is a 1-mana 1/1 menace with start your engines. It's got the activated ability pay 2 of any mana. This creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn, and max speed. So if you have 4 speed, then it's got double strike. So it's already got evasion, so it's really, really good early game. Late game, when you get max speed, it's an absolute tank, especially when you can just sink all of your mana into it and deal 8 to 10 to 12 damage a turn.
Yeah.
Originally, I wasn't too hot on it. I was trying to test. There's a card that came out in Edge of Eternities. It was very similar to Hired Claw, where it was a 1-mana 1/2, and when it attacks, you could pay 2 to make a
robot
creature. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So I wanted to try that out, and then there was Kellen from the Foundation set, which
the
again,
legendary level up guy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So there's a few other 1-drops in that slot, but a lot of people have settled on Burnout Bastronaut, and I've also done the same. Really, really good card. Yeah. A new card, which we are massive fans of, is Nova Hellkite, right?
Yeah.
So imagine if there was such a thing as a 3-mana 4/5 with flying and haste, and it deals 1 damage to a creature an opponent controls when it enters.
Don't have to imagine, Dan.
Because we've got it. We've got Nova Hellkite.
Because we've got it, yeah.
So this is a very the new warp ability from Edge of Eternities. On its backside, it's a 5-drop, so it's 2 red and 3 generic. Flying haste, ETBs, deals 1 damage to a creature opponent controls, and it's also got warp, 2 and a red. So warp, if you don't know, pay for its warp cost, so you pay 3 mana. It comes onto the battlefield, deals a damage, attacks straight away, and then you exile it at the beginning of your end step, and you can cast it for its normal cost later on in the game. Yeah. So really, really good. It forces control players, the main mid-range players, to deal with it there and then. Otherwise, it's going to kill one of the guys and also kill Kaito on the battlefield. It's just insane.
Really good into Dimir. Really, really good into Dimir. Like, and there's a 4-color control deck who one of our fellow Chad Magic team members has just qualified for Turin for. Shout out to George. But I love this the idea that like all card advantage must be on cards like Consult the Star Charts or Stock Up. Obviously Red does not have access to those cards, and I love the idea that honestly, a card like Nova Hellkite reminds me very much of Standards Gone. Like in spoiler season, it just completely passed me by. Didn't even think about it. Yeah. But playing with it's very fair and very strong, and it is sort of a card advantage spell because it's a 2-for-1. Yeah. And if you can kill a creature with a TTB, then it's almost a 3-for-1 because you get 2 cards out of it, and it's such it demands an answer and it demands respect. And because the format's so geared towards VV at the moment, that respect isn't really there for it. Yeah. And the thing is as well is like even in the mono red mirrors, it goes bigger. It's a huge creature. Yeah. Really easy to go bigger with. It's been very impressive.
Yeah, it's great. And it's not going to get chump blocks by Screaming Nemesis because it's got that flying evasion. So
yeah,
I'm a big fan of it.
Huge. Big fan, yeah.
But that pretty much wraps it up for the traditional mono red deck. If you fill in the rest of the slots with Burst Lightnings, Lightning Strikes, and some basic mountains, then you've got yourself a playable deck for your RCQ.
You got a stew going?
I've got a big stew going, just constantly stirring the pot.
Shout out to Burst Lightning as well. I think this deck is obviously it doesn't have the card quality of EV because no deck has the card quality of EV, but this deck puts up a fight. And essentially, Burst Lightning is one of the main glue that keeps the deck together. It's been very impressive. And obviously, Burst Lightning is like a pack one, pick one, and any cube you're playing. Yeah. But to be able to play with it in a constructed format and have it be so impactful and good is really cool. And again, it's full of micro synergy. So, like, if you attack with your Razorkin Needlehead and they block, first strike damage, then Burst Lightning the creature, it's probably not surviving that. Yeah. Or you can Burst Lightning your opponent before blocks to give all of your Bastronauts double strike if you're on 3 speed, or in the end step, or in the response to a fire magic, Burst Lightning you, activate Hide Claws. The deck is, I have to say, like, you've mentioned your fallen comrade, Heartfire Hero. that deck did not interest me at all, because usually there was the right thing to be doing, especially when your card quality of Half-Eye Hero and Monstrous Rage was so high. But this deck really rewards somebody who knows how to play it. It isn't just play creatures and attack. It's as honestly quite similar to Nova Hellkite, demands to be respected, right?
Exactly.
As a strategy. Yeah, really cool.
But no, that pretty much wraps it up for our first deck. That is mono red. Again, if you just go onto MTG Goldfish, it'll be one of the top decks on the metagame split.
Yep.
Sam, you've been playing. I won a store champions the other week, and Sam picked up my list, and then he took it to an FNM, and then won FNM. We both really like this list. Do you want to talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, so this is mono red dragons, and I think mono red dragons is pushing it a bit far, but I like this deck as almost a big red strategy of old that we've seen in the past, more like a mono red mid range deck, and it plays quite similarly to mono red aggro, but it decides to play more of a mid range plan than this. Trying to get the job finished as quickly as possible. So mono red dragons, really the key piece I'd say here, or the two key pieces, are Sarkhan Dragon Ascendant and Twinmore Stormbrood, I think the card's called.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. So Sarkhan's a really interesting card. So he's 2-mana legendary 2/2 creature. When you cast him, or when he enters, you can behold a dragon. So reveal a dragon, or behold one you control, I guess.
Yeah.
And if you do, you make a treasure. And whenever a dragon enters, he gets +1/+1 counter and flying until end of turn. So the card's pretty unassuming. You might pick it in limited and make a decently sized lad throughout the course of your 5-color dragons deck or whatever. But there's a lot of synergy in this deck that makes it a bold choice, but still a really good choice.
Yeah.
For example, turn 2 Sarkhan, reveal Nova Hellkite, then cast Nova Hellkite the following turn. Really does change the game, because now you're attacking for 7 in the air, haste, immediately putting your opponent to a lower life total. And then being able to reveal a Twinmore Stormbrood as a removal spell then puts the game into your opponent's hands. Well, what cards are you going to cast into this open removal spell? And
exactly.
It's a roast. So it kills Pre-Treated Schism. It kills Enduring Curiosity. It kills a big VV, for example, or a big Marauding Mako. Like, there's not much that survives that 5 damage clause in Standard at the moment. But the deck plays a bit more mid-rangey and can really utilize those treasure tokens. Being able to play a turn 2 Sark and behold the dragon and then cast a 4-drop is really cool the following turn. I beat somebody the other week by getting a turn 3 Chandra into play post sideboard, and they just couldn't keep up with it. It's also the idea that the warp on Hellkite is so good with Sarkhan's ability too, because you get the trigger on the warp, and then you get the trigger on the cast as well, from warp casting. So, if that happens without any interaction, you're going from a 2/2 to then a 3/3 flyer and a 4/5 flyer, and then a 4/4 flyer and a 4/5 flyer. That is pretty much game. It still plays like these little mono red pieces, like the Bastronaut and the Hired Claw, just as a bit of extra reach. But the deck is committed to its dragons more often than the actual red spells. And what I mean by that is the deck even used to play like Taurian Mauler as a changeling, as a 3-mana dragon. Yeah. But no, so what I really like about the mono red dragons deck at the moment is I think the deck is quite strong, but it's probably what you are less likely to see in an event. But there's some merit to having the red deck that people aren't prepared for, right?
Yeah, exactly.
There is definitely some merit there.
Yeah, because you can set up, say like if you're expecting to play against like Razorgun Needlehead, you can set up your next turn, but then if you see a Sarkhan beholding a Twinmore Stormbrood, oh, what do we do now? You can either kill the Sarkhan there and then, or you can wait for maybe like a surprise Nova Hellkite, or you just don't commit to the board. So we can just put you in really, really tricky situations. Obviously, the original, or well, a few weeks ago now, the Mono Red Dragons decks was running the Taurine Mauler. It was running a Magda the Horde Master, which was very, very interesting. So it was running like whenever you commit a crime, create a taps treasure token, and then you can sacrifice 3 dragons, create a 4/4 Scorpion Dragon with flying and haste, activate only as a sorcery. But then it was running a lot of synergy with those treasure tokens as well. So you could either just sack them to Magda to make a 4/4, and it was also running Plasma Bolt, which is essentially Lightning Bolt. It's 1 mana for a sorcery, deals 2 damage to any target. Or it's got Void, which is the, in quotations, the new Revolt. This is if it deals 3 damage instead if a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn, or a spell was warped this turn. So you get access.
Is it if a spell was warped as well?
Yeah, it is.
Crazy. Sorry, carry on.
So it's
I know what I'm talking about.
It was like turn 2 you play a Magda, and then turn 3 you play a Nova Hellkite Warp. You get a tap treasure token from that, from the Magda anyway, and then you swing it for 4. And then the next turn you play your 4th land. You've now got 5 total mana to just play your Hellkite from Warp to get another tap treasure token. So you're essentially, your red spells cost 1 less to cast. It's basically is it Ruby Medallion? I think it is.
Yeah, that's right. And there's some really cool, like the best draws with Magda where you go turn 1 Hired Claw, turn 2 Magda, the Hired Claw ping is the crime, creating the treasure. Then you don't tap and cast Sarkhan, and like what the elements you just covered there is, I think the card has cut those. It definitely cut Magda because it felt a little outpaced, but the sort of play lines you've just described is why I actually really like that deck in the Mono Red Mirror. You play a lot of interaction, and those Plasma Bolts really pull the weight, especially when Red's gone towards these Razorkins, these Hired Claws. A couple of other cards which we'll talk about shortly with Adventure for blue perhaps, but one thing I really like about this deck in the mirror is you can just save those treasures and cast your Twinmore Stormbrood for 6 with the white mana from the treasure, and you gain 5 life. The deck was really good. I have to say that I think Sarkhan is almost very, very strong. I think Sarkhan is probably 1 playable dragon short of being a real standard contender, because we've got 2 good dragons. I think we're missing 1, but
we have
dragons are one of. No, I played with Taurine Mauler. And it doesn't cut it quite. But if we have like another playable dragon, I think Sarkhan's a real contender. He hits hard and fast, and what I love is that as he grows with counters, even if he's not attacking on the ground the turn after, still blocking really well. He still blocks the Razorkin with First Strike. But no, I think dragons is really good, especially into the VV, because the 5 damage removal spell deals with a lot of stuff. Flying is pretty awkward for VV too, right? They have the Scholar and the Riddler, but if they have their FOMO Mako draws, and those cards don't fly. But I do also like that this deck has a lot of utility in the Mono Red Mirror.
Very interesting. It was a fun list for when we played it, and then obviously we changed it up for store champs and then following, and we've done well with that list as well. And then we've seen this list, and then we've changed it again. We've gone on to sort of like a pink version of Mono Red, which splashes blue, I guess you could say. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. And then I'll leave you to discuss the deck we've got to, because these are actually quite exciting. And it's cool. Like, I think that one thing I really want to say is this innovation come out of, I saw Fire Shoes tweet about this in Orlando, but they had played it in an event. It's some form of qualifier event. Sorry, Fire Shoes, if I can't remember which one, but it was definitely in Orlando.
It was like our equivalent to an LCQ, I believe. I think
they're
called re-CQs over in America.
Yeah, that sounds about right, definitely. And this deck takes the Razorkin Needlehead angle of the mono red strategy and runs of it. So obviously, as we're going through these, please bear in mind that the building blocks are the same. All the red decks we're discussing is playing Hide, Claw, and Bastionor, for example, and yeah. But yeah, so the Pingers deck takes advantage of some cards that I didn't know were in standard. And there's a running meme that, oh my god, it's been another day and we're still finding new cards in Foundations. But these are actually playing cards outside of Foundations that we didn't know were in Standard.
Yeah.
So Razorkin Needlehead's obviously very good against Vivi because of the 1 damage. But what if I could turn that 1 damage into 4 damage every draw step? And that's where Oje Axonil, I've got one on my desk just so I can pronounce it. We'll cut that out, Dan. Don't let them know my secrets. But Oja Axonil, Deepest Might, is a 4-mana, 4/4 trample god from Lost Caverns of Ixalan, I think that's called.
Yep.
Yeah, woo, look at me go. It's not on my desk at all. But essentially, OJ is a 4-mana 4/4, and it says if opponent would take non-combat damage that's less than OJ's power, it takes damage equal to OJ's power instead. And essentially, a lot of text. What that means in this deck is your Razorkin Needlehead triggers are now dealing 4 a draw step because that's non-combat damage. Burst Lightnings are now going at the face for 1 mana instead of 5. But it also plays Scalding Viper to take advantage of this ability as well. And Scalding Viper's quite interesting. I look at Razorkin Needleheads and I think of, it's half a Sheoldred. But I see Scalding Viper, and Scalding Viper's half of an Eidolon the Great Revel, but it's a bit better. So, a bit different, I guess. But it's a 1 and a blue for a 2/1 Elemental Snake. Sadly, it does not trigger Hide Claw, as I found out yesterday.
1 and a blue? 1 and a blue, did you say?
No, 1 and a red for
Sorry.
No, it's okay. 1 and a red for the casting cost. And essentially, it's whenever an opponent casts a spell, if its mana cost 3 or less, they take 1 damage.
Yeah.
Obviously, with Oja in play, they take 4 damage every spell for 3 CMC or less. But if you look at the Vivi matchup, all that deck does is cast spells and draw cards. I'm pretty confident the only spell they cast that dodges Scalding Viper is Quantum Riddler.
Yes.
From the list I'm aware of. So Scalding Viper, essentially, like the draws where you go Needlehead into Viper. Okay, you're drawing a card, you cast a spell, you take 1. Oh, well, you're actually casting a spell that draws you 2 cards. For example, with those 2 in play, Winternight Stories is a Boros Charm to the face.
Yeah.
Draw 3, cast a spell. It's really cool. And as we've already mentioned, decks are quite greedy on their interaction because they're more geared for the mirror rather than for mono red. But it also has this sweet little adventure ability, which I definitely didn't get confused with Omen and didn't try to shuffle into my deck. But essentially, it's 1 in a blue for a sorcery speed Brazen Theft from Brazen Borrower, or Petty Theft. So it's basically 2 mana bounce a permanent at sorcery speed, but it's 1 in a blue. So you can reset Cauldrons, you can reset VVs, you can bounce a key blocker out the way to have lethal. That unsummon effect or bounce effect has actually got a lot more utility than it looks. And essentially, it's really cheeky, but to get away with it, you play a Spybuff Canal and you place a playset of the Red-Blue Verge, because that is a mountain first.
Yep.
And a volcanic island, second. So the Pingers deck is essentially super geared to beat VV, really geared to beat VV. I mean, it's almost a free matchup. And obviously I have to say almost because VV is very strong and things go wrong, but they really, really struggle to interact with you in that regard. And I think that if you have a natural curve that's Hide Claw, Razorkin Needlehead, Screaming Nemesis, and then you top off your curve with Ogier, essentially Hide Claw attacks, ping, non-combat damage, and that deals 4 damage. If you have 2 Hide Claws in play when you attack, that's 8 damage before. It's starting to get into silly territory. And I like that this deck is hyper-focused and is perfectly built for what it wants to do. It wants to beat the VV Cauldron decks consistently.
Yeah.
And whoever looked through these cards and saw a deck is a much smarter person than I am. It's a very, very impressive list. Have you played any of this one, Dan?
I've played a little tiny bit on Magic Arena, and I've played in some testing games with one of my friends, Captain Walnut. And the deck seems strong. I would say that the only sort of issue I had with the deck is that the Scalding Viper, more specifically, rather than the deck, is that it's very, very weak in combat. It's only a 2/1, so it dies to a Swift Breeze. But outside of that, it being like a one-sided half Eidolon of the Great Revel, really, really good, really, really good. And then obviously if you pair it when you've got 2, 3 of them and you've got an Odra out in play, it can just lock people out of the game. Whereas like with Eidolon and a Great Revel, you could lock yourself out of the game. So this card's very, very cool. I like it.
Yeah, I think it's cool to see so much innovation, and obviously I think one of the points you made on rotation and on ban window is the thing we were most excited for is not the new cards coming out, but when powerful pillars are removed from formats, things come into play to replace those pillars. And whenever I see a rotation or I see bans, rather than excited for new cards, I'm more excited for the cards that exist that haven't been able to see play step into the limelight. OJ seeing play is very, very, very cool. It's such a Timmy card. It's so sick.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it is. Can you imagine if we had Monstrous Rage in the format that, and I Monstrous Rage my OJ and then attacked with High Claw to deal 7 off the ping? Yeah, but no, the deck's very cool, and I just want to highlight this list as a 2-pointer. If you want to beat VV, you can. Yeah. Also, innovation isn't dead, and we have described before VV took over. We did describe Standard as a bit of a brewer's paradise, and I think this deck is a front runner for that happening again. Before we see the ban announcement, so once the bans happen, I think we're going to have room to.
Scalding Viper's great. I'm really excited to see what other cards can be pulled out of the shadows for the mono red decks. I mean, from when I've been looking back on Twitter a couple of weeks ago, is originally seen this deck from Quinn Tonali, sorry. So he posted this on like the 28th of won a challenge. So that's very, very cool to see that mono red's been doing bits for a couple of weeks now, and it's just carrying on being innovative. Obviously, we've seen the Cauldron deck keep on very, very strong, and then Fire Shoes doing really, really well with it on Friday before the last spotlight, and the deck's just come out of nowhere, and people have just been playing Odras, and it was one of the highlighted cards, I believe, that the commentator said during that weekend. So very, very cool to see mono red finally getting a bit of innovation rather than just sort of traditional play patterns of Heartfire Hero into Manifold Mouse into Screaming Nemesis into anything else from what you can. So I'm very happy with it, and like we said, it's a brewer's paradise, more specifically in the red department, but I'm sure that there's other cards out there that you can find and play. But that leads us on, unless you've got anything else you want to call out for the ping version. Cool.
No.
So that leads us on to the next deck, which has been a bit of a sleeper. It's not done sort of numbers in results. It's not won many challenges. It's not been pooing out leagues left, right, and centre, doing really, really well. But it's a sleeper deck, and it's got potential. So this is Boros Mice. So it's very, very different. So I'm going to be reading a few cards. So it runs like Flowerfoot Swordmaster, which is the new Heartfire hero. So bear with me, there's a lot of text. This is a card from Bloomborough, again another hidden gem. I didn't even know this card existed. It's white for a 1/2 with Offspring 2, and it has Valiant. When this creature becomes the target of a spell ability you control for the first time each turn, mice you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. So if you go turn 1 Flowerfoot into turn 2 Manifold Mouse, then you've got a double striking 2/2, which is very much how Heartfire Hero used to play out, except Flowerfoot Swordmaster deals all of your mice, gives all of their mice that short anthem effect until at the end of turn. It still runs, you know, your Hired Claws, Screaming Nemesis, because them cards are, like we've said, are just too good to not play in the red shells. But it's nice to sort of see Emberheart Challengers, Manifold Mouse, joined up by, you know, your Burst Lightnings, Splashing White, so you get access to cards like Sheltered by Ghost, which is an insane card and has just gone right out of everyone's eyesight recently. And then to sort of top off this list, you run a Mice Lord, or a Mouse Lord, however you want to say it, called Mabel to Cragflame. So this is 1 red and a white for a 3/3, legendary creature Mouse Soldier. Other mice you control get +1/+1, so it's got its Lord effect. And then when Mabel enters, create a Cragflame, a legendary colours equipment artifact token with a crit creature gets +1/+1, vigilance, trample, and haste, and it has equip 2. There's a lot of text on that card. I've run out of breath a little bit, as you could probably tell. So just topping off, you go sort of like Flowerfoot Soldier into Manifold Mouse into Mabel. You're now giving all of you guys +1/+0 or +2/+1, and follow with like a Sheltered by Ghost. So it's got the potential to carry on putting that pressure on in the early game, and then it's got cards to restock in the late game. This is another new card, which again, never heard of. It was in Bloomburrow, and it's just one of them hidden gems.
Yep. Every day we are learning that there are new cards in standards that are not from Foundations. I think this deck is very cool, and I think it exists on the horizon of standard, where, like, you know, if you wake up at 3 a.m, remembering that the thing you've been trying to remember all day. This kind of reminds me of like that, but in deck form. I imagine the VV matchup isn't ideal. However, once that deck's gone, this could be a real contender. What I like about it, honestly, is that it's committed to the bit. It's playing Swordmaster, which isn't an awful card by any means, don't get me wrong. But it's also that it's not too sold on itself, that it's not playing cards like Screaming Nemesis. It's still taking itself seriously. This deck seems really cool. Well, I think that as well, that now that the answer for a strategy like this is a Pinnacle Star Cage and not Temporary Lockdown, this deck has a lot more game because a Braid exists in the format.
Yeah.
So I think that, you know, this deck's been somewhat on the precipice for a while, but is essentially just gets locked down out. It no longer automatically loses because they have a Braid to fight the Star Cage as well.
Yeah, exactly. And with it splashing white, so white has arguably had sort of like the better mana base in standard since Edge of Eternities came out and gave us Sacred Foundry. So you get 4 fast lands in Aspiring Vantage, you get Sacred Foundry, and you get the 4 Verges as well. Fill that up with Rockface Villages and some man lands, and you've got yourself a really good deck. Another thing I really like about this deck is the free Shelter by Ghost that this list is currently playing. So obviously it's really good into the mirror. You can nab a Screaming Nemesis, you can nab another Hellkite that's been hardcast, there's loads that you can take. But with Shelter by Ghost, it being non-land permanent is insane. So you can take like a Kite out from it, you can take like a Cauldron, you can reset Cauldrons, you can reset Vivies. You can do lots and lots of stuff, especially like we mentioned before, where Vivi's not running a lot of interaction and they can just tap out on her turn to play like a Prof or a Steam Core Scholar. So I'm excited for this deck. Obviously, when Vivi goes, it's going to be a bit more prevalent because everyone's going to be testing out new different builds. But this one's had my eye for a good couple of weeks now, and I've been talking to one of the Team Chat Magic lot, Stephanos, about it for a few weeks, and he seems quite high on it as well.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, we've already talked about Mono Red starting to flex its muscles a little bit. Shelter by Ghost is the best answer to Screaming Nemesis that nobody's playing. I think it's safe to say. It's quite a naughty answer, I have to say. Like, I don't really want to see it. Like Screaming Nemesis. Sure, we'll go with that. But no, this deck's really cool. And, you know, I think that one thing I've never really been a fan of, and it's just a component of Magic, is that when there's a package and the card within that package gets banned, the whole package falls off.
Yeah.
So, Manifold Mouse is still a cool card. It's just a shame it was part of that ridiculous package of Hero, Mouse, Ember Heart Challenger.
Yeah.
And, maybe it's not good enough to play anymore, but this deck really tests that and puts that to its limit. And I like that this is sort of picking up the pieces of what once was. But as I said, it's sold to the bit, but not so sold you play in bad Magic cards. I think that's really important.
I mean, it's got basic mounting. That's arguably a bad mounting card, right?
A bad mounting card? Yeah. Look, hear me out. Take out Mabel. Add 4 OJ Exono. 4. Put Shelter by Ghost on it. Right?
Okay.
And now it deals... Every non-combat damage deals 6. You take out some mice. You play some Hide Claws. Scald Vipers.
Yep.
Are you selling what I'm buying? No, are you buying what I'm selling?
I don't think I am, no.
Okay.
You're discussing like a 3-color aggro deck where the standard format is notoriously known for not having a great mana base at a minute.
No, hang on. We're fine because we're playing basic now.
Yeah, fair. Good point.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you, Dan.
One sort of like big thing about this deck as well is with it splashing white, you can just play Rest in Peace, so that solves your Vivi matchup.
Yeah, it's
huge.
You
can play Get Lost, or you solve your control matchup for like Elspeths or Kaito, so on and so forth.
High Noon as well.
High Noon, yeah.
Yeah.
So the deck looks fun, and Stanley sort of popularized it in my eyes as well. So Stanley, one of the past guests we've had on, also again talking about Mono Red, surprise. Shout out to you, and thank you for bringing this list to my attention. But that is the decks that we have sort of brought together and earmarked as being sort of like the main key holders in the format to go after the Vivi matchup. I will warn you, 4-color control is a bit risky. So make sure you bring your Sunspine Lynxes in the sideboard for that. But no, it seems it's fun. It's a good time to be a red player at the minute.
Yeah, very good time, and I think that it's going to be interesting. A lot of people, especially myself, are excited for Spider-Punk.
Yep.
Coming from Spider-Man, which I imagine will slot into there somewhere, because now your Sunspine Lynxes and Screaming MSI can't get countered. Do you like what I did there? I used an MSI without even pointing to it. Yeah, nice. You can cast those without worries of flash freeze, getting countered, stuff like that. So I think that Red's only going to get stronger, and it's nice to see it still kick in and putting up a fight after the Heartfight Hero went.
Yeah, definitely. Spider-Man's coming out real soon. It's like Sam said, we've got that card that you've just said that I can't remember the name of.
Spider-Punk.
Yeah, Spider-Punk, that's one, thank you. But you've got a fair few. But I'd imagine we're going to sit down over the next do our top 5 picks for Spider-Man.
Yep.
So yeah, stay tuned for that. We don't have any listener questions this week. So we're going to skip through that. It's going to be one of the first links in the description. We did have an issue where some of our links wasn't working. That's now been fixed. So feel free to click on the link in the description, leave your name, ask a question, and we'll answer it next time we're on the show. Shout out to our sponsors, UltraPRO. They kit us out with amazing swag. We get these awesome UltraPRO Apex sleeves. Us on the team have been using them. They're really, really cool. The quality is amazing, and you get fancy art on them. So treat yourself to some sleeves. Other than that, don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. Subscribe's the most important one, and ding dong the notification bell. Follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, all that usual stuff. But Sam, thank you for joining me in discussing the best archetype in Magic history, and it's good to have someone else join the mountain range, I guess you could say.
The mountain range is actually a really cool name for it, and honestly, I'm definitely a follower. I'm really easy to get into and I have a great time once I'm in them. So this should be fun.
Brilliant. Okay, but no, thank you very much for watching, everyone. I'll see you all soon. Bye bye.
Catch you later. Bye.